session today is an introduction to clinical research. The first slide here is just a little bit about myself. I've been in clinical research for a very long time now and have seen many changes, including the very first, I can't say publication, but implementation of ICH, which was really interesting. I think it was 1997, 1998. And then, of course, the revisions since then to the various, parts of ICH. I've worked in phases 1 through 4, various roles, as you can see. And now just truly enjoy, presenting these courses for Barnett, in addition to some of my additional consulting that I do. What our course objectives are, and that is to describe the different phases of drug development, to differentiate between drug development and medical device development, and then to give us a basis of why we do what we do in clinical research, and that's to discuss the historical events and the importance of good clinical practice throughout the world in clinical research. So on this slide, we're actually asking you about what is clinical research. From what you've seen in terms of, from the non-clinical perspective, what would you think clinical research, or what do you see clinical research as?
I believe it's to better understand diseases and to find ways to treat and prevent the disease.
Yep, that's excellent. And so just to add on to that, we'll give you the more formal slides, which addresses the important questions of the normal functions and diseases using human subjects. So the key piece, whenever you use the word clinical, it means that you've moved on into human subjects. My original training was as a physician assistant, and I remembered moving into pharma, onto the pharma side, and whenever they would talk about clinical, I would think, why is that such a big deal? Because it was so basic to me that I never really thought about the fact that there was a whole non-clinical side of it. So clinical equals, humans, okay? It's a component of medical and health research that's intended to, as you mentioned, produce knowledge valuable for understanding human disease, preventing and treating illnesses, and promoting health. So it really talks about determining the safety and effectiveness and efficacy. This is a concept that's going to go throughout your whole clinical career of medications, clinical research career of medications, devices, diagnostic products, treatment regimens intended for human use. And these can be used for prevention, treatment, diagnosis, or relieving symptoms of a disease. It is different from clinical practice. So we, from the pharma side, we certainly look at it from a different perspective, and then those that are actually working with the patients, so from the site side, they are using their medical knowledge in addition to following what the clinical research practices are, the regulations and the guidelines. So now that we've talked about what clinical research is about, what is a clinical trial? So a clinical trial and clinical study are synonymous, and then it's really any interventional investigation in human participants intended to discover and verify the clinical, pharmacological, and or other pharmacodynamic effects of an investigational product, and or to identify any adverse reactions to an investigational product, and or to study absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of an investigational product with the object of ascertaining its safety and or efficacy. So there are those words again, safety and or efficacy. They're really, really important for discovering new treatments for diseases, or new ways to detect, diagnose, or to reduce the chance of developing a disease. It can show researchers what does and doesn't work in humans. And these are things that we cannot learn in the lab or in animals. You know, and as I understand it now, you know, there are a couple of studies that they are doing. I think one's already been completed, in which they've never used a clinical patient at all, a human subject. It's all done through computers. So I have not followed up to see, and I've not seen anything else on that, but it will be interesting to see, you know, kind of how that's looked upon, because as you and I know, humans are unique individually, and whereas one person can tolerate certain medication, another person may not tolerate that particular dose, or may actually exhibit some side effects that the first person didn't. And so I just don't know how that's going to, you know, kind of be teased out if you are working with, you know, with computer and just data entered, you know, that way. So tune in. We can't talk about clinical research and clinical trials without discussing clinical research ethics. And so there are a number of events that contributed to this evolution of research ethics. And it's always good, especially at the very start of a clinical research career, to know what our research foundations are. And so the ethical framework for human subject protection, whether it is in clinical research or medical you know, care, has its origin in the Hippocratic Oath that was written in the late 5th century. Yep, the one that our physicians and our healthcare practitioners take. Essentially what it is it's the idea of doing no harm. But unfortunately, as we look at the following events, it didn't seem to apply when it came to experimentations involving human beings. And the two events that I'm talking about are World War II experiments and the Tuskegee experiment.